veins. I've been driving this train, years in this lane. There's no stopping this flame, cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capped in space. I won't stop till I hear him say, oh, oh, la, 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 la. Man, I'm up again. I got tired eyes, need a cup of blend. That's right, in the AM, that's my only friend. No light, just the sun coming up on the horizon. I lose track of time, yeah, I move fast and climb a new class divine, yeah, true passion shines. And I'm through passing time, I choose stacking dimes. You snooze half the time while I move passing by. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capped in space. I won't stop till I hear him say, oh, oh, la, 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 la.
This is Bill. Bill wants to build a Cynabal and join the Angel Cartel cause in Zarzak, but he's not making it easy on himself. Okay, so over the course of the last dozen or so episodes, in my downtime, in between completing whatever the task of the day was, I've also been doing some ratting, some ghost sites, some low-level DED sites, whatever ISK earning activity was immediately available to me. Because, as you know, we still need to earn 500 million ISK to buy all of our blueprints and reaction formulas. We are currently, actually, not doing that bad. We're sitting at 333 million ISK. We are exactly 2/3 of the way to our goal. But 170 million ISK is still going to be a bit of a grind. And we're at the point right now where this is no longer something that we just do along the way. All that remains for us to be able to build the Cynabal is collecting our atmospheric gases, getting our 60,000 loyalty points to buy the net resonators, and earning the 500 million ISK. So now is the time to start taking the ISK earning seriously. It has become job one. Now, not being able to sell to the market really does cut us off from a lot of the traditional ways to make ISK quickly. When people talk about the ISK earnings of running DED sites, for example, they're talking about things like finding valuable modules that they're not going to use, they're going to sell. If we could sell that Shadow Serpentis damage control that we got last time to the market, we would already be across the line. But we're limited to those activities that either put ISK directly in our wallets or give us items that we can sell to NPCs, like the clone soldier tags. So all of the conventional wisdom about the ISK per hour income of different activities is very misleading to us. We need to build up a new list of what earns the most ISK the most quickly by ourselves. And to that end, while I was running all of those ISK earning tasks in the background, I have also been compiling a spreadsheet, because of course. So look at this. For some of these activities, the data site is still pretty small, but I think we have enough data that we can reasonably draw some conclusions. The absolute worst sub-minimum wage job that we undertook was mission running. When we were running level 2 and 3 missions out in Curse, we averaged about 4 million ISK per hour. So it would take us something like 45 hours of level 2 and 3 missions to earn the remaining 170 million ISK. Although it is worth noting that the reason people run missions isn't just for the bounties and the ISK mission rewards that we're counting here. People are also, of course, using those loyalty points to buy objects to sell on the market. And the ISK from the loyalty points often dwarfs the ISK that you get from the bounties and the mission rewards. So it's no surprise that this mission running income looks so low. It is worth noting that we do also need Angel loyalty points to buy those net resonators. So there is a chance that we end up running some more missions in the end anyway, but we won't really be doing it for ISK. Now, as for the low-level DED sites, the DED 1 of 10s, 2 of 10s, and 3 of 10s, between the bounties and selling the Overseer's effects, we were making about 7.5 million ISK from that activity. It's nice that we get those modules that we can use, but the truth is most of those modules are frigate sized, and we aren't really hurting for good fits for our frigates and destroyers right now. So I think the DED 1 of 10s to 3 of 10s are now also off the table. Hovering right around the same income bracket at 8.5 million ISK per hour is the Abyssal sites. Now, I know that the Abyss being such a low earner comes down in part to me just not knowing what I'm doing, but I think that even if I took the time and put in the effort to learn the different Abyssal rooms and the strategies that go with them, this still wouldn't be a top earner. Every time we go into the Abyss, our chance of losing our ship is going to remain quite high, and we need to get the right filaments in order to keep going into the Abyss, and it just doesn't seem to be sustainable. So I think the Abyss is also off the table. Next up, there's our old standby low-sec belt ratting. Low-sec belt ratting is a pretty good way for us to earn ISK, and it's always available to us. It's so accessible. The bounties are lower than they are in nullsec, but we also get those clone soldier tags, which we sold directly to Concord for ISK, and that makes up a big chunk of the difference. From data collected over many hours of low-sec belt ratting in different areas of space using different ships to kill different NPCs, we've earned an average of just under 12 million ISK. That's not bad. This is a whole different ballgame. At 12 million ISK per hour, we're looking at about 15 hours of low-sec belt ratting in order to meet our goal. That is something that I can at least imagine myself doing without feeling too beaten down by it. But there are a couple of things that we've discovered can earn us even more than that. First off, it's turned out that my plan for scouring lowsec and nullsec in an exploration frigate, looking exclusively for ghost sites and sleeper caches, which drop the covert research tools and the sleeper data libraries we can sell to NPCs, that plan actually worked out better than it at first seemed it was going to. I've logged like 14 or 15 hours of that exploration now, and the average income from those ghost sites and sleeper caches, including the time I spend looking for them, totals up to 14 million ISK per hour. Although bear in mind that this is still pretty RNG dependent, it's easy to spend 2 hours exploring and not find any of those sites. But that's still enough to put this exploration plan in the top tier of ISK earning potential. We are now talking about the top 3 earners. Ghost sites and sleeper caches is number 3, and at number 2 is the higher level DED sites, although we only have 1 data point so far. We ran 10 dens to spawn a DED 5 of 10, and then we ran 1 DED 5 of 10. And over the course of that entire endeavor, the last 2 episodes, we made 16.5 million ISK per hour. Running the dens themselves is already a decent earner, even if the DED 5 of 10s don't spawn for us. Running the dens themselves, we made 6 million ISK per hour, and that includes the time jumping system to system looking for dens. And once we did find that DED 5 of 10, the site itself gave us 60 million ISK in bounties and overseer effects, and it only took us 2 hours to run. That's 30 million ISK per hour, and if we broke that site out into its own entry in the spreadsheet, it would easily be number 1 on this list, but that would not be a reasonable representation of the actual earning. We have to include the den grinding in the total. If we are exploring and we just find a 5 of 10, then it is 100% worth our time to run it every single time. But if we're out hunting them using dens, 16.5 million ISK, still quite good. But at the number 1 spot, as I kind of suspected it would be, is nullsec belt ratting. Now again, for this one, I collected a lot of data from a lot of different areas of space, fighting different factions in different ships, and the average of all of it put together is 16 million ISK. But killing Garistas is not the same income as killing Sanchez, is not the same income as killing Serpentis. If we look at the individual sub-entries in that section of the spreadsheet, one thing really stands out. The time we spent killing Serpentis belt rats in nullsec, flying a catalyst, brought in 19 million ISK per hour, and I've got about 5 hours of data to back that up. So the takeaway is, if we really want to get that 170 million ISK as fast as we possibly can, it looks like the best way to do that is just to go out and spend 9 hours in Syndicate or Outer Ring or somewhere we can find Serpentis battleships and just belt to belt to belt to gate to belt to belt to belt in Fiona the Catalyst with her hyperspatials fit, and we should be able to grind that out in a single day if I have nothing else to do with my time. But before I dive right into that, before I strap the blasters onto Fiona and clear my calendar, there are a couple of other ways to earn ISK directly that we haven't yet engaged with in this whole run. And there's still a decent chance that one of them could let us break the 20 million ISK per hour barrier. So we're going to be breaking new ground today. But before we do that, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. You can see here in my wallet, I've been collecting some daily goal rewards. This is a real pain in my ass. This is an adjustment that was made with the new expansion, that the daily activities, you no longer necessarily have to redeem them. Once you've done the activity, if you don't redeem it, eventually it just pays out to your wallet. If you're doing a challenge like this and you've started recently, I honestly think that you probably could get away with just letting these daily goals come into your wallet. It makes your ISK grind a little bit shorter. I wouldn't say you were cheating by doing that, but I am a stickler for the rules I set out at the beginning, and these little 500,000 ISK pity payments are against my rules. So I've been going through my wallet on a roughly weekly basis and counting up all of the daily goal rewards I've received so I can transfer that money out to another character. Bill does not take charity from air. That's it. Time to actually get out in space and make some bank. You might be wondering, what's today's brand new ISK earning activity? Well, I'll give you a hint. I'm currently in Thera, and we're boarding a Thrasher. We are en route to a Class 2 wormhole system connected directly to Thera. Now, there is some risk in doing the content we want to do in a wormhole that's connected directly to Thera, because Thera has a population that loves to scan down connections. However, Class 2 wormholes are not really highly sought after systems. So I think most people who scan down this C2 connection in Thera or who have the bookmark from Eve Scout are likely to pop in just to look for pirate data and relic sites that can appear in there and otherwise carry on with their day. If we wanted to be safer doing this, we would go out to kspace and then scan a C2 from there, or find a wormhole with C2 statics and then scan further down the chain. But I feel pretty confident, overconfident maybe, that we're probably not going to find ourselves being actively hunted. I popped into this wormhole with a probe when I first scanned it down with Priscilla the probe, and I did note that there is a Fortizar in there. So we are talking about an occupied wormhole, but there were no ships on scan. They could be cloaked, of course. And Zkill suggests that there hasn't been any PvP activity there in the last few days. Now, I keep saying Class 2 wormhole. Wormholes come in 6 difficulty classes from Class 1 to Class 6. And the Class 5 and 6 wormholes feature basically the most difficult PvP content in the game. Even the lower class wormholes like Class 1s and Class 2s are actually pretty tough compared to a lot of kspace content, but there is some overlap. The easiest wormhole content is quite a bit easier than some of the kspace content we've already dealt with. In fact, that's why we've gone for a Class 2 wormhole. The Class 1 wormholes are easy enough that I think it's worthwhile just to skip them and see if we can do the Class 2 content for the better earning that it's going to offer. Now, the sleepers and drifters in wormholes do not have bounties. So the way that we make ISK from this is by killing those sleepers and then looting from their wrecks the sleeper data libraries, which we can sell directly to NPCs. We already killed a few sleepers when we went on that mining mission, when we needed, I believe it was Omber, for a storyline mission out in Curse, and we found that there were a couple of sleeper frigates in the belt, and we were able to clear them in a Thrasher. So now today, we're going to see if we can actually clear a combat anomaly in a Thrasher. There was a video that somebody linked in the Discord, in the Corvette Cynabal Discord, of a player named Wadendaris running Class 2 sites in a Thrasher. And that has inspired me to give this a shot. I actually used to live in a Class 2 wormhole way back in the day. I was CEO of a corp with about 30 or 40 active members. We had a POS in a Class 2 wormhole, and I used to solo these sites all the time in a battlecruiser. I'm pretty excited to try it now in a destroyer. Here's the fit I'm using. It's not the same fit that Wadendaris used. His was mostly Tech 2 and a little bit of Dead Space. This is Tech 1 and Meta. We do have a couple of Tech 2 rigs, but basically we're just using our Tech 1 autocannons. We've got a medium shield extender for a little bit of buffer, also the 2 shield rigs giving a bit of buffer, and then we've got a medium shield booster. Our cap is not stable. It runs out in about a minute. We've got the Nosferatu in the high slots to extend our cap life a little bit, but I don't think there's any reason we need to be cap stable. If we do this correctly, we should only actually be taking damage for very short stretches of time. Now you can see here in the anomalies, we've got perimeter checkpoints, we've got perimeter hangars, we've got the Ruins of Enclave Cohort 27, and I believe there is another combat anomaly that can spawn in here called Sleeper Data Sanctuary, which I don't see any of right now. It is worth looking up these combat sites on EVE University before you run them, because sleepers can have a wide variety of very powerful E-War, and what we're going to do today becomes much more difficult if we're being heavily neuted or if we're being especially webbed or warp disrupted. But the perimeter hangar only features a little bit of energy neutralizing on a frigate, which we should be able to take out quite quickly. We are going to drop an on-grade perch as we're landing, because we want to make sure that we land at this site at the right spot. And if we get in trouble, we want to be able to warp out without losing our eyes on what the NPCs are doing. Make sure our perch is well placed. 1,000 kilometers, perfect. Okay, so you can see the first wave of the perimeter hangar has 3 cruisers and 2 frigates. Basically, all that we're going to be doing here is picking one of these cruisers, trying to land right on it, entering a tight orbit, and then just sig tanking everything in the site. I think it's going to be relatively straightforward, and I'm quite curious to see how much exactly we can earn. So I'm warping to an object in sight to try and land as close to these cruisers as possible. As soon as I land, I'm going to pick the closest cruiser and start burning over towards it immediately. Entering a tight orbit. We're going to lock up the guy we're targeting. We're also going to lock up the 2 frigates. We want to take them out as quickly as possible. They hopefully should fly into a tight orbit for us, so we won't have to chase them. The frigates are neuting us. That's why we're so interested in getting rid of them as soon as possible. We want to get our Newt onto the cruiser. Sorry, we want to get our Nos onto the cruiser. As you can already see, they were taking a bit of damage. Our shield booster is holding. Okay, we're going to shoot this frigate now that he's in close to us. Now, these sleepers have totally even resist profiles. So it doesn't really matter what ammo we're shooting. We're shooting EMP right now just because we have a lot of it. And now that the frigates are down, we're not being nuded, our cap should stabilize a bit, and we should be taking no damage from this patroller who we're orbiting, and a little bit of damage from the two further cruisers. But I'm pretty sure we've stabilized. Yeah, our shield's holding pretty good. Now there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hangars in this one wormhole. So if this ends up being a pretty good source of income for us, we can just run all 7 of them back to back. It is worth mentioning, though, that you may have noticed I'm wearing a different shirt than I was in the intro. That's because yesterday, when I recorded that intro, I was like, okay, I'm just going to undock, warp to a C2 wormhole, and knock off this video. I had about an hour and a half free in my day after I finished recording the intro yesterday, and I thought I was going to get the whole video done and recorded in an hour and a half. But yesterday, there were no Class 2 wormhole connections in Thera. Okay, the approach here, actually, I'm going to warp off to my perch for a second, which will give me a moment to recharge my shield and cap, and then I can choose a new warp in, and these wrecks that I've left littered around will provide better warping opportunities to make sure that I land right on top of a cruiser again. We were doing okay tanking that site, but if we... Okay, just a second. Okay, this should be a pretty good warp in. Yeah, we were doing pretty good tanking that site, but I think that if we were flying 20 kilometers under afterburner power towards those two cruisers, we might have seen our tank break pretty quick. Oh, that wasn't the best warp in. They're still 19 kilometers away. But they've got us untargeted now, at least briefly. I think should be able to cover this distance pretty quickly. Get into orbit. Yeah, sorry, it's what I was saying about yesterday when I went to try and knock off this video in the hour and a half I had available to me. There were no Class 2 wormhole sites. There were no Class 2 wormhole connections in Thera. And then I was like, okay, no problem. Class 2 wormholes are literally everywhere. I'll just pop out to kspace and scan one down. And I did. I popped out through several different kspace low-sec connections and scanned half a dozen systems, and I did not find a single suitable wormhole. I found one Class 2 wormhole, and it had like four praxis out in space running sites, which of course was not a great situation for me to be bringing my PvE Thrasher into. So that was an hour and a half that I spent on this plan and earned nothing. We should keep that in mind when we're considering the ISK per hour results that we get from this little exercise. But I will say that I think what happened to me yesterday was a bit of an anomaly. Class 2 wormholes are ubiquitous. There are often Class 2 connections from Thera. And I think we should be able to find a Class 2 wormhole with the sites that we want to run pretty much whenever we want to do so. But even if that's the case, even if we find a Class 2 wormhole pretty quickly each time we want to do this plan, the time we spend scanning for the wormhole is time. It's not as plug and play or just drop in whenever you want as nullsec or lowsec belt ratting. And it's complicated by the fact that even if we find a suitable wormhole right away, there won't always be 7 perimeter hangars for us. Sometimes we might find a good wormhole and there might only be one anomaly currently on the scan, which means that we run that one site, and then we have to consider the time that we spend looking for and moving to the next wormhole. I don't think the downtime on running these sites is going to be anything like the downtime on running DED sites, or especially the downtime on running sleeper caches and ghost sites, but it is absolutely going to be something worth considering. I sent this guy to approach, that's why he's damaging me. Now that's down to just this one cruiser, and we're actually orbiting. We are taking no damage. After we kill this guy, though, there will promptly be a wave 2. and it has a battleship. So we're going to want to get into a tight orbit of the battleship as quickly as we can, which warrants a quick bounce back to the perch. We can land right on him by warping to this at 10 kilometers. Now, the convenient thing about this site is that the battleship is not the trigger for the next wave, which means we can safely take out the battleship straight away, which gives us more freedom to move around the site without risking a high alpha battleship shot, and then deal with the cruisers, who are the trigger for the third and final wave, at our leisure. This really does seem quite straightforward. We do have to be watching D-scan at all times, and we do have to be taking note of these cruisers getting further away from us. They've pulled 20 kilometers range, which is letting them track us better. But as long as we just pulse our shield booster, turn it off for a bit when we get down to like 1/3 capacitor, seems like we can handle this. I don't think we could permatank this wave. I don't think we could permatank it, but this battleship's going to go down before our tank breaks, I'm pretty sure. And then we'll just bounce back to our perch. Actually, having said that, I might heat my shield booster for a minute. I don't want to bounce back to the perch before taking out this battleship if I can avoid it. Gonna take a little bit of armor there, but basically no problem. See where our next warp in is. Okay, I think we've warped to the snake-shaped asteroid at 10 kilometers. We should land on the Awakened Escort. I'm having a little bit more difficulty than Wadandaris did in his Tech 2 fit with the Dead Space shield booster. But man, is this fit a lot cheaper than his and a lot more accessible. I do think that with a small shield booster too, and otherwise this exact fit I have right here, you would probably be cap stable and have zero problem at all running these sites. So if you're not doing some sort of crazy build it yourself run like me, small shield booster 2 is going to be your ticket. You'll notice that all of these wrecks have something in them. That's the sleeper data libraries. It's the only loot the sleepers drop, but all of it, everything in these wrecks, is for selling directly to NPCs. This guy's going down quick. The other cruiser is 50 kilometers away, which means it's going to be another time to bounce back to the perch. I hope there's something convenient nearby that I can warp to get close to him. It looks like even if I warp to that wreck... Oh no, the wreck's in line. I assume it's obvious how I'm picking my warp-ins here. But you can see this line shows the vector between me at my perch and this ship. He's 1,048 kilometers away from me, so I'm looking for something further down this line. So if I warp to this at 50, simple subtraction, I should land pretty much on him. When the sites first spawn, your warp-in choices are pretty limited because you have to warp to these asteroids and whatnot. But as you scatter wrecks around the site, you end up with a lot more choices of what you're going to warp to. I really do think that for the perimeter hangar specifically, that sig tanking it in a destroyer or an assault frigate or something might be the optimal way to run these sites. I remember running these sites in a hurricane and just face tanking the damage, and it being quite a lot. I had to put some serious thought into the tank on my hurricane to make sure that I didn't find the damage of these C2 sites overwhelming. And here I am. Here I'm just waltzing through it with a little bit of strategic perch bouncing. I'm having no problem at all. It makes me feel silly for using a battlecruiser back in the day. Now again, we're going to want to take out the battleship first. 1091, 1097. This should be a good warp in. Now, you'll notice that I am flying in a wormhole without a core scanner probe launcher fit. I do have a probe launcher, scanner probes, and a mobile depot in the cargo hold, so that if the hole I came in through closes behind me, I do have a way to get the loot back out. I did one time early in my EVE career find myself in a hurricane in a class 2 wormhole with no probe launcher and no way out, and this is before mobile depots existed. And I had to eject from my hurricane at the sun and self-destruct my pod and just leave it there as a present for whoever came through next. It is a mistake that you make only once, and it's a mistake that I encourage you to never make if you haven't made it already. Yeah, those cruisers have pulled range again, and my cap is running low. I might have to bounce out to the perch once before I actually finish off this battleship this time. Because I ran my shield booster too much at the beginning when the cruisers were in close and I was taking very little damage. I should have saved my cap. I'm gonna bookmark this exact spot so I can warp right back to it if I bounce to the perch. Oh, yeah, you can see once they get good tracking on you, the damage comes in pretty fast. If we were just sitting still and letting these cruisers and battleships apply to us fully, we would not last very many seconds in Trixie the Thrasher. But Trixie, you are doing fantastic. Just gonna let the cap recharge for a minute. The sleepers don't repair very quickly unless they have on-grid logistics. There are some of these sites where there will be logistic sleepers that are healing up the other guys, and those sites can be a real pain to run. The hangar, however, we have chosen quite intentionally. I think this is the easiest site in the Class 2 systems, with the possible exception of the perimeter checkpoint. The checkpoint has no E-war at all, not even neutralizing on the frigates, but it has a lot more frigates in it who can apply to us. Okay, so my teenage daughter just called me lost, and I, of course, had to answer the phone despite sitting in space in a wormhole with no cloak. This is how people die, but fortunately, doesn't seem to have happened. Unfortunately, these sleepers have been flying towards me the whole time, so they are now well off of the site and well off of anything I could potentially warp to. So let's see what the warping situation looks like. Oh, it's not so bad at all. Definitely life aggro is a constant part of the EVE experience. You only healed up halfway. If you are out in space doing high-risk activities and you're suddenly called away from the keyboard, EVE does not forgive. EVE does not forgive that at all. There is no pause button in this game. But D-scan's still empty. It seems like this is a pretty good system to be AFKing in if you have to AFK in space in a wormhole. Okay, so now this guy is pretty far off the site, but if I warp to this at 50, I should land relatively close to him. And then hopefully the other guy flies in a little bit closer to the site while I'm doing that. I have let my cap get quite low, though, by forgetting to turn off my shield booster. I may have to go back up to the perch. We'll see how much damage I take on the approach here. I know the cap's recharging okay. Looks like we're going to be fine. I have spread out these wrecks quite a lot, which is going to be a little bit annoying when it comes time to loot them, but I always can just warp off to the perch and then straight back to any given wreck. There is a Heron system The heron obviously is not something I'm scared of, but it is definitely worth noting because that heron could be popped out from Thera or from some other system. We haven't scanned in all the connections here. And he could have combat ships in whatever system he came from, or worse, that heron could be a pilot who lives in this Fortizar, in which case he might have combat ships and friends right here in system. So we're not going to panic yet just because we saw somebody else in system. But we are going to be more on our toes as a result. I'm not sure if I can do an angled approach on this guy. It's probably wiser just to warp back to the perch, but I'm going to try and fly the distance anyways. Yeah, I think I can make this approach work. I'm going to have to go back to the perch anyways. Burning through too much cap. Tanking those big hits as I fly towards him. And that's it. That is the site cleared. That took me about 30 minutes, not counting the 5 that I was on the phone with my daughter. So now we're going to see what the total of loot is in all these wrecks. 1 million from this cruiser, which leads me to believe it's going to be 1 million from the other cruisers as well, although there could be some variation. Wadendaris was running these sites in 15 minutes, but he was using Tech 2 autocannons on his Thrasher with Tech 2 hail ammunition, which makes his DPS about double ours. I think he had about 400 DPS on his ship, so it makes sense that he was doing it in 15 minutes with 400 DPS, and we're doing it in 30 with 225. But though we did get into, 1 million, though we did get into armor there briefly, and though we did have to heat our shield booster briefly at one point, we were never really in serious danger of losing our ship at any point in the site. The scariest thing that happened to us was when that heron showed up on scan. So once I finish looting this, I'm going to take these data libraries back to Thera, plug those numbers into my spreadsheet, and then we'll come back in and we'll run another hangar as quickly as we can, see if it goes faster the next time. Okay, 3.9 million from the battleship. That makes a big difference. This is looking really promising, actually. Yeah, so I'm going to put the ISK from this site, including the time spent looting here, into my database, but then we'll also, when I run the next site with the more efficient strategy of looting as I go, we'll see what the ISK per hour looks like from that, and we'll use that probably. And we'll use Site 2 as our real barometer for deciding whether this is worth doing on an ongoing basis. Because I think this is going to get a little bit faster and more efficient now that we've learned a couple of lessons. Well, we have looted 15.6 million ISK in sleeper data libraries from one perimeter hangar, which is incredible considering it took us half an hour to run. That's potentially 30 million ISK per hour, except that heron seems to have collapsed our wormhole. So now we're stranded in here, and that ISK is not ISK at all. It's loot that we may never get back to kspace. Okay, so here's the situation. I can look up J122638 on Anoikis, the out-of-sight tool for wormholes, better than Dotland when it comes to W space, and it tells me this system has a low sec status, so there will be a wormhole in here somewhere that can take me back to low sec, and from there, I should be able to navigate my way eventually back into Thera. I really thought that wormhole I came through had time left on it, It's possible I had misjudged. I checked the life on it when I first scanned it down, but that was a couple of hours ago, and I didn't check the life on it again when I came through. But I think what's much more likely is that that wormhole collapsed due to mass, that heron who came through probably also came through with a rolling ship on another account and just intentionally collapsed the wormhole. This is why we packed probes. We don't have a scan strength bonus on our Thrasher though, so this might be a little bit of an exercise in frustration. The first signature we scan down is a wormhole. Let's see where it goes. I'm going to start scanning another signature immediately though. I'm not going to just assume this is our way out. Goes into another wormhole system. That is not what we want. We know that this wormhole has a kspace connection. It's got a low sec static. Every wormhole has what's called static connections, which means that there's always a wormhole from that system to a system of that class. And when that static connection closes, another one opens immediately. Not all wormholes have kspace static connections. Some of them only have statics to other wormhole systems, which means you can find yourself in a situation where you have to jump first to another wormhole system before you can get a connection back to kspace. So since we're in a system with a low sec static, we're going to find that static. We're not going to jump into another wspace system and find ourselves further and further down the chain. Second signature we scanned, also a wormhole. Let's see if this is the one. Lost in wormhole space. Such a common refrain. Dangerous unknown. That's not what we want either. Gas site? No thanks. Wormhole. Null security space. Okay, at least that's kspace. But I'm going to hold out for that low sec connection. Gas site? No. Data site? No. Data site? No. Gas site? No. So our low sec static must be this one? Unless Anoikis has lied to me and there is not a low sec connection from this wormhole system, it looks like it's going to be the very last signature that we scan. Gas site. What? What? Oh. I typoed the system name when I typed it into Anoikis. This system actually has a nullsec static. I'd sort of rather jump to another system in W space and find my way home from there, rather than jump into nullsec and try and fly home without a micro warp drive or a cloak or any agility mods on my Thrasher. I feel like trying to navigate to Aethera in hole from a random nullsec system is probably suicide. So let's see where wormhole Z647 goes. High sec static. Okay. That is great news. It's a wormhole to high sec. Okay. Now, if this is Minmatar or Amar high sec, we are going to be persona non grata because we're a member of the Angels. But we can just move quickly. Unless it's a 1.0 maximum security system, we should be able to get out of dodge before the cops catch us. If it's Galente or Kildari high sec, we'll actually have time to look around and make a plan. But finally, we are out of W space. It's derelict Amitar mandate. Although Amitar is at the middle of the Venn diagram of Minmatar and Amar, they don't actually seem to mind that we are enlisted with the Angel Cartel. So I think we can even dock up. Feels good. Feels good to see Stargates on the overview again. Oh. I have in the past gotten lost in wormholes for much longer than that. I'm actually pleased with how quickly we got out of there. Oh, that's convenient. Somewhat. There is a Thera entrance just 12 jumps away in Thera. To get to Thera, we must go to Thera. Okay, it turns out that we can stop at the Plucker Mix warehouse in Abaria with only a 2-jump detour, and that's going to let us sell our loot before we limp our way back home into Thera. Oh man. Now, though this blue loot shows 15.6 million ISK estimated value in our cargo hold, we're going to lose some of that to taxes. So 14.9 million is our final take. That's still that's still not bad at all. Not bad at all for half an hour in a site. Yes, please. Before we get back on the road, I'm also going to repair our armor. Onwards to Farah and Thera. Okay. So Farah is high sec. And because I am a stickler for the rules, that means that I need to scan down this wormhole in a Corvette. However, Farah has no stations in system. So I'm actually going to have to fly a couple jumps back to Faspera, where the nearest station is, because Derelict is a wasteland. Hop in a Corvette there. Come back and scan down the wormhole. And then retrieve Trixie the Thrasher. It never ends. It would be so easy just to scan down this wormhole with Trixie and say to myself, you know, it's the exact same thing. There was nobody in system. I get no advantage from scanning down that wormhole in a Thrasher versus in a Reaper. But it's against the rules. And I've come this far without breaking my self-imposed rules once, even on a technicality. So I'm not about to start now. I still have no skins for the Reaper. How is that possible? Also, what number of Grim Reaper are you? Looks like 13. Lucky 13. There's our Thera entrance. Now back to Faspera to retrieve Trixie. So close. So close. The unique and mysterious Thera system. And here we are. Home at last. 54 minutes. After finding ourselves trapped in wormhole space. Trixie, you made it. So, after all that, what is the takeaway on the ISK earning potential of those Class 2 sleeper sites in a Thrasher? Well, if you just look at the top line figures, we pulled in just under 15 million ISK in 31 minutes of anomaly combat. That is 29 million ISK per hour, head and shoulders above nullsec belt ratting, the best spreadsheet sell we have by a mile. However, if we include in that spreadsheet the 54 minutes it took us to get home after the wormhole closed behind us, the number drops down to 10.5 million ISK, which is a lot less appealing. And if we further include the 90 minutes we spent yesterday fruitlessly searching for a wormhole to run sites in the first place, that number drops all the way down to 5 million ISK per hour at the bottom of the barrel with the level 3 mission running and the abyssal dead space. Now, I don't think that today and yesterday was a typical experience. I think it was an outlier. I don't think it's usually going to take us 90 minutes to find a wormhole to run these sites in, but it will always take us some time. And I don't think we're usually going to get trapped in W space and have to spend an hour clawing our way back to Thera. But if we do this enough, it will occasionally happen. We need to be realistic about the fact that this scheme requires setup time, and it has an unknown risk of ship loss and of lost time on the way home. I'm going to run a few more of these sites and find out what the actual numbers really look like when we do it right. But just knowing how it can go wrong is enough that there is an asterisk for sure beside that 30 million ISK. I think that this is probably really about as appealing on a long-term basis as nullsec dot ratting, which is in turn about as appealing as grinding dens for D5 of 10s. And in a way, that's a nice result, because we still have 150 million ISK to grind, and it's nice to know that we have at least 3 activities we can choose from without feeling like we're leaving money on the table. Okay, round 2, door to door. Let's do this smooth. Timer starts now. Perimeter hangar from Thera. "38 minutes, door to door." Ran the site at about the same speed as the first one, so it seems like half an hour is the time it's going to take in this fit. But 7 minutes travel time is definitely an improvement. Thank you so much for watching. I know the videos have been a little bit sporadic lately, and that is going to continue. I am right in the midst of renovating, and next week I'm going to be moving house. So it's possible that for the first time since this series began, I'm going to go an entire week without posting a new episode. But come the end of the month, we're going to be right back in the game with our eyes on that finish line. So I've never said this before, but now might be a good time to click that notification bell.